What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Cooper Stuff. You know, it's Cooper Stuff time. And you know what? This is going to be one of those episodes that some people are going to be like, thanks so much for doing this. And other people are going to be like, oh, this is totally uncomfortable. I can't believe we're talking about this. But we are, because I tell you what, I am super passionate about seeing people get set free from pornography. It is so pervasive that it's almost, I don't want to say it's accepted in the church, but even in the church, people are sort of like, yeah, it's sort of like speeding. Like, yeah, okay, maybe you shouldn't speed, but everybody kind of does it. And I'll tell you what, I have seen this personally with friends of mine. I've seen this rip families apart. And I really can't exaggerate that. But I've also seen hope, and I've seen people's lives put back together as they have put this thing to death. And I've seen marriages brought back together. And of course, we, especially those of us who know Jesus, we believe in the death and resurrection of Christ. We believe in redemption of the cross. We believe in grace. We believe in a God who puts broken people back together. Somebody say hallelujah. So I've got my friends from Covenant Eyes here. As people know, if you've been watching the show, we're partners, and I've been supporting Covenant Eyes. And I wanted to have these guys on the show. I'm going to introduce them in 1 second to kind of explain to us what Covenant Eyes is, maybe how they got into this, and they can give us some statistics on how prevalent pornography is in American society in general, and in the church, and this and this and this. So I want you to meet my friends. Number one, we've got Brandon and we have Karen. Take it away, guys.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Hey, everybody. It's Karen from Covenant Eyes. John, thanks so much for having us on. And I know this is a tough topic, so it's okay. You know what? It was tough for us when we got started doing this. I've been with Covenant Eyes for 7 years, talking to church leaders, pastors, and Christians all over the country about pornography. So it gets easier the more you talk about it. And that's why we're on the show today. We want to help people identify pornography as a problem and also give them some tools and hope on how to overcome it.
Excellent. I mean, that's a great starting place. And Brandon, I'll let you say what you want to say, but I think a great starting place is what you just said, Karen. Let's identify this as a problem. Am I crazy, or does it kind of seem to you guys like a lot of Christians, maybe even I don't want to exaggerate. So if I'm exaggerating, let me know. But it seems to me that people are sort of like, well, yeah, it's not good, but what are you going to do? And am I right or wrong about that?
You're right. Absolutely. So statistics show us about 7 in 10 Christian men are struggling with pornography, and 1 in 3 Christian women are struggling with pornography. And the younger generations have grown up in a pornified culture, so they're less they're less repulsed by pornography because it's been so infiltrated into the culture, into music, into movies, into TV, into all of the social platforms. So as Christians in the church, we have a lot of work to do because people are desensitized to pornography. And so we've got to start at, educating and equipping people so they understand why pornography is dangerous. And I'll let Brandon talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, one of the things that I find really interesting, John, now remember, this is going to be from 2016, was a study we did in 2016 with Barna, and they were talking about different things that people find immoral, and they had teens list in order what they thought was immoral. And one of the answers was that more teens thought that not recycling was more immoral than looking at pornography. Think about that for a second.
Gracious. That seems not possible.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is kind of, and that was 2016, as I mentioned. So this is something where we really are, especially Karen and I and our team, we're really trying to awaken the church to this problem, because I think we've reached a point where, we were even looking at some divorce statistics and the reasons for divorce the other day, and pornography really isn't even showing up on a secular level. So we're reaching a point, I think, in our culture where pornography is just widely accepted. And so it's really important for the church to wake up and not go that way, because the church has to stand against these powers, right? The church has to be there and be that hospital for sinners that people can come to when they're lost and looking for answers. And so if we don't get it right as a church, I think we're really in trouble.
For sure. Hey, John, one thing that's really interesting too is that we feel like all of the cultural problems that we're struggling with right now just kind of popped up, right, in the last couple generations. And that's not true. We've been in a sexual revolution for a very long time. So for Christians who know the history of Kinsey and some of the disgusting, horrifying things that were going on with his research, and then we morph that into Planned Parenthood, and we walk down through Hefner and the evolution of the sexual revolution, we didn't get where we are as a culture today by chance. Okay, this has been an ongoing assault against Christians and our faith for decades and decades. And now we're in a place now where we're desensitized so badly to pornography. We have it in schools. We have it, I mean, they're trying to come at it with our kids. And so as Christians, we have to wake up. Like as adults, we have got to stand in the gap and get engaged, because if we're unhealthy and we're knee deep in pornography, how are we going to help protect our children, right? We have got to lead the way for our kids.
Let me tell you something I am passionate about, as you know. I want to see people 100% free from pornography. Not a little bit, 100% all the way free. And that is exactly what Covenant Eyes does. All right. They have been doing this for over 20 years. They've helped 1.5 million people get free from pornography addiction, and they are on your side. I have a friend who's a pastor, and I said, hey, do you know about Covenant Eyes? And he said, dude, me and all of my elders have been a part of Covenant Eyes for years. And he swears by it. He's like, this thing is serious, and it has helped lots of people in churches all around the nation. Not just churches, but churches do it, elders do it, families do it, friends do it, all right? Let me tell you, pornography is ripping families apart, and it's something that we have tolerated and we should not have tolerated, and it's something that people thought, well, if I only do a little bit, it's not going to affect me and blah, blah, blah. I personally know people whose marriages have been ripped apart because of this, all right? It is absolutely deadly, but with accountability and with the power of the Spirit, I am telling you, you can break free from this. I got good news. I know people whose marriages have been put back together because they broke free from pornography. So here's what you do. Go to covenanteyes.com, use promo code Cooper. That's my last name, Cooper, of course. Cooper is the promo code. You're going to get a free month trial. That's what it's about. You and a partner. Get a partner to do it. Someone you trust, someone that you love, someone that says, hey, I want to be in this with you and I want to break free of this with you. You can do it. All right. Trust me. Go to covenanteyes.com, promo code Cooper, get your first month free. Man, that is a great point, Karen. I mean, now you're speaking my language, because we're talking about, I mean, the sexual revolution, all the horrible things it's done. I mean, really what it told people was that you are, your problem, all your problems in life are because you are not liberated sexually. And if you liberate yourself sexually, then your life is going to be awesome. Things are going to be good. You're going to have good mental health. And that is, that's some of the devious things of this that I think a lot of normal Christians don't really know. But I think it's interesting as you say that, because when I was growing up, we didn't have cell phones. Yes, I'm too old to have grown up without a cell phone. And yeah, pornography wasn't available like this, but even at my church when I was growing up, the conversation was constantly, how far is too far? It's okay to do a little bit of this, but not the big, the big thing being a sexual intercourse, but you can do all this other stuff. In other words, we never really wanted to put these guardrails in. And I think that we're paying the price for it now, but I am blown away by the statistic about the recycling, because really what it shows you is, in so much of the social justice rhetoric, it's all about these outward things that we have to do to show that it's like virtue signaling. We do all this great stuff, but your heart is so full of decay. So, Brandon, I don't know, why don't you tell me how you got into this? Why are you here? Why are you passionate about this?
Karen was talking a little bit about Covenant Eyes at the beginning, and the one thing I was going to add is that a lot of people who work at Covenant Eyes are here because they've been on their own journey, which is what I really love about this company, is people who have experienced the darkness of pornography or struggles like that are here now trying to help others. And that's really my story. That's how I ended up here. So I'm kind of one of the newbies on the team. I've been here 3 years. But I had a 13-year struggle with pornography. To quote a song by Skillet, which was one of my anthems, I really felt like a monster at times. I just struggled in my marriage, almost lost my marriage because of the anger and the pornography and everything. And it's amazing how God works when he is able to take something so gross and so dark and then bring it to the light. And then he's like, oh wait, I'm not done with that yet. Here, why don't you come and work for Covenant Eyes, and why don't you be on the front lines and help fight against this, something that was and still remains a cross, right? But you can use it to help glorify my name. So I would say that's the reason I'm here, is because I really want to, in my heart of hearts, help people who are struggling with pornography, because I know that darkness, I know the loss that comes with it. Thanks be to God, I still have my marriage. We have 2 beautiful children, but it can destroy so much and take so much from us, John.
That's powerful. What I love about Covenant Eyes, because we got to meet a few months ago, all us, meaning us 3 in person at the NRB thing. You know, what I really like about this is this is really tough to do. And I will say, I mean, I spend a lot of time in the show. I don't want to say beating up on, I don't beat up on pastors, but I like to say things like there are. And I'm always saying there are some fantastic pastors out there, and I love them. Sometimes I wish pastors would do more, but I'll tell you what, I feel bad for pastors, because there is a tension we have to hold, which is we're holding this truth. As we said earlier, this is a really despicable thing. And we can get into some of the reasons why pornography really is, it is despicable. It's a really it's a degrading thing. It dehumanizes people. And then you have the issue of abuse and trafficking and all these other things that you will know more about. And I'd like you to tell me about it. But at the same time, you guys are passionate about saying, hey, if you mess up, that's okay. We've messed up too, but God forget. We serve a God that is so gracious. You're not going to do something to where God is just like, that's it, you're too bad, because you're out of the kingdom. You're not going to do something like that, because we don't earn our salvation. You cannot earn grace. It's a free gift from God. But at the same time, it is that grace that empowers us to then put to death the deeds of the flesh. And I think that that's what Covenant Eyes is to me. This is about putting to death the deeds of the flesh, and we can do that. So I don't know if you want to talk about some of those other things about what pornography does, why it is so degrading. You guys are going to know more about that than me, but you could talk about that now, unless you had something else that you wanted to say.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. You know, I think especially coming off of, everybody has gone out to see Sound of Freedom, right? I mean, that's a great movie, and it helps to open our eyes to the evils of sex trafficking. But what a lot of people don't realize is that the fuel behind sex trafficking is pornography. Most of the pedophiles that get caught by law enforcement, they find that pornography was the gateway drug for these folks. It started with pornography, and it grew into other areas of pornography, more horrifying each step of the way, until they actually started engaging in pedophilia. So I think with a lot of people really aware to, that fact now, I think we need to talk about that pornography fuels that. In addition, there are studies that also show us that pornography, it actually hinders the relationship between male and female. So there's violence that comes from watching pornography. We treat other people like objects and not human beings. And so when you start treating people like objects, you're going to not love and respect them as brothers and sisters in faith, but you're going to treat them as objects for pleasure and for selfish reasons. So there's some of that too that I think we need to address. But the biggest thing that I find is that there is a study by Dr. Perry out of Oklahoma State that shows a direct correlation between pornography use and then the lack of engagement in church. So let's say if you're a church-going Christian listening to this, and you know that if you're using pornography, you feel that shame, you feel that guilt, you just feel all that pressure, you're probably less likely to engage in volunteer work at your church. You don't really want to step out because you feel guilty and you have that shame. And statistically, it's shown that people step back from volunteering and engaging. And gosh, we're not stepping into the calling that God has for us in our lives. This is holding us back. So that is why, to me, it is so important that we talk about pornography, because so many people are struggling with it, and we just need to call it out and then start working towards freedom together as a church body. And I think that's really important.
I want to say something here, but I just want to I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to say it. So if parents out here, if you're watching this with your kids, maybe this is one you don't want to watch with your young kids. I don't really know. But so a few years ago, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but it's really important. All right. A few years ago is the first time that I knew someone, a guy, who was having trouble getting erect, all right, in his marriage. And we're going there. I'm sorry, it's embarrassing. I've never said the word erect on a Cooper Stuff podcast. And all this stuff came out about pornography. Now, at the time, I had no earthly idea, because I'm so naive. I didn't know that even non-Christians were watching pornography to the degree they were. I just didn't really know about that world. I never would have believed this guy was involved in that. I just wouldn't have believed it. As we start finding out, they're saying, well, he's watched so much pornography, it's rewired his brain, and he's having trouble having sex with his wife. I found that almost too impossible to believe. Almost like when I was a kid, we had the Say No to Drugs campaign, and all these people would come to the schools and they'd say no to cigarettes, because if you do cigarettes, then next thing you're going to know, you're going to do LSD and you're going to be jumping out of windows, and everybody that smokes a cigarette is going to jump out of a window from LSD, and it's going to, and it was almost like, how many people does that really happen to? I guess what I'm saying is that this story that I've just said about my friend, I've heard this story a lot. Is this urban legend or is this actually real?
It's absolutely real. And I'll let Brandon speak to ED and the correlation between pornography and ED.
Yeah, 100%. And as a guy, it was something that that really scared me when I found out that was a possibility, especially being a married man. But what we see, you talked about the neural pathways being rewired. So we're training our body a certain way to respond when we're looking at pornography. And as we get those dopamine hits over and over and over again, what happens is our brain can't handle that. So the brain begins to fatigue. And so all of our receptors that are supposed to respond in a normal, natural, God-glorifying way, right, between a man and a wife, kind of go to sleep, because we're so addicted to, I use addicted lightly, right? I recognize there's clinical addiction, but we're so addicted to looking at the screen and getting whatever we want on the screen and being able to dive deeper and deeper and deeper into that when we get with a real woman and they're not doing the same things that we see on the screen, and they're not looking the same way, and they're not performing the same way, right? All of that begins to affect satisfaction, and it affects performance.
That is just absolutely crazy. I mean, I've read a lot of articles that say this, I don't know if I would have believed it had I not known someone, because I'm like, oh, come on, this sounds kind of crazy. So what you're saying is that when the Bible says not to conform to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, it's almost like he made our minds to do that, right? Is that what we're saying? The Bible's true?
Absolutely.
True.
So
breaking news.
Yeah, breaking right here on Cooper Stuff. The Bible's real and God's always right. And oh gosh, garbage in, garbage out. So let me ask you another question as we're on this tact, or track, I should say. I also hear people say, and I've read a lot of reports like this, confirm or deny for me, guys, that it is the case that some people, and I'm curious how many we're talking about percentage wise, that level of pornography needs to increase. So whatever you are watching is no longer giving you that satisfaction or that arousal. And then it ends up becoming more degraded. I read something somewhere that was talking about like rape fantasy porn, which I had never even heard of. I didn't know that was a thing. And I'm wondering again, is this like if you smoke cigarettes, you're going to do LSD, or is this actually as big as what people are saying in terms of some of the really degrading and violent stuff, etc.?
Yeah, it absolutely is correct. And a great organization, Fight the New Drug, has a ton of statistics on their page that really walk through some of those correlations. But the troubling thing is that with pornography, they have found that it's more addictive than even some of the most harshest drugs. So because of the chemical releases that are happening in the brain and in the body, you actually have to seek out different types of pornography, more aggressive, more violent, more vile, because your body will not generate that same chemical reaction at the level it did maybe last week or the month before. So it is extremely dangerous, and absolutely correct, John.
And I just want to speak to that for a second. So typically when we use alcohol or when drugs, there's a high and then it dies down. What studies show is that high actually stays around longer than even cocaine, right? So in order to get another high or to keep that same level, then a person has to continue to use it or use worse and worse things. I can actually, I mean, I'm kind of disgusted to say, but I can speak to that personally. When I was struggling with pornography, the things that I looked at, I'm very ashamed of that. But it becomes a level where it's not enough and it needs to be more. Now, I'm not saying that everybody is going to go and engage in child pornography, right? I'm not saying that everything is going to go to that level, but it does go deeper and deeper the more we let Satan get deeper and deeper into our hearts and into our souls.
Absolutely.
I read a report that was, and I don't fully understand it. And if you guys are like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, just ignore this and we'll move on. But I did read a report that was explaining that some people, and I was mainly talking about men in this, but watch pornography and get used to it. They was talking about that sort of high that you're, whatever the word for that sort of high, that when that begins to come down, that some people find that they need pornography just to not give them anxiety, like they have anxiety. And it's not necessarily that they even need a sexual release. And again, parents, this is for parents, but in other words, they need to watch it, even if they're not, like, when I think of people watching pornography, I'm assuming they're masturbating, and they're saying, no, it's not even necessarily the masturbation involved. It just needs to be around to give them some sort of appeasement for their anxiety or something like that. I gotta admit, I don't really understand. Is that even true? Am I reading something weird?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And one of the things we look at is pornography is often driven by triggers. And a lot of people can, when they're anxious or hungry or angry or tired, will turn to pornography because they've trained themselves to turn to pornography in those points. Now, how many times in life, John, are we anxious or hungry or tired? And so if we've trained our brain to go that way, we've developed those neural pathways that we were mentioning to go that way, then in those times, that's what we're going to turn to for our comfort, for our release.
Absolutely. And John, the one thing that really frightens me as a mom is that our kids are being exposed to pornography at ages of 7, 8, 9 years old when they are not capable of understanding even what they're seeing. And so as they're being exposed to these things, they're getting, they are feeling those same emotions and developing habits and neural pathways as they continue to mature and develop. And we're seeing children addicted to pornography at those young ages, and they don't even understand what it is because their body is responding to something and their mind is responding, but they don't even understand it. So as parents listening, this isn't just for adults. I mean, we are on the front lines of protecting our children. We have to engage on this topic because our kids are being infiltrated.
And just really quick point to add to that is that we're also seeing, because younger and younger kids are looking at pornography, that violence, even among younger kids, like young boys towards younger girls, is increasing. We see that in research studies as well. So, just thinking of on a cultural level, when we have a more aggressive society, even at a younger age, those are the younger generations that are going to grow up and be running our country someday.
Yeah. And just to add that to that, I have a colleague who works with schools, and he was actually sharing a story of 2 different occasions at 2 different schools where a young child who was in 1st grade and 3rd grade actually physically started assaulting their teachers in a way that was like what they had seen in pornography, because these kids had been watching pornography so long. That's how they thought they had to interact with females. I mean, these are little kids acting out towards their teachers. I mean, this is really, really bad stuff.
You guys are just you're just breaking my heart. I forgot, yeah, I even forgot about the child thing. I was thinking about this other thing, and now I'm like, oh yeah, of course. It's an epidemic. I mean, we see this in churches. Again, I do a lot with churches, so I know a lot of pastors, I know a lot of youth pastors, I know a lot of children's workers, and the stories that I've heard that are like that, they blow me away. So why don't we go then, so we don't depress everybody, why don't we go then to the positive side? So what are we going to do about this? We've got to do something about Parents have got to get on this. I think that a lot of parents, even great, good-hearted Christian parents who love their kids, I think that some people they're so scared that they don't know they don't know where to begin. And I think Covenant Eyes is a great place to begin, So tell me what we're going to do about this. Tell me there's some good news, you guys.
Absolutely. There's always hope. Oh my goodness. Like absolutely there's a way forward. So I'm going to start off with what can parents do? I'll start there. It's really, really simple for parents to start these conversations. You've got to be an intentional parent. You have to get a little uncomfortable and start talking to your kids as early as possible about topics related to pornography. It starts when they're very little, talking about, there's a book called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures, and it talks about, areas of the body that are inappropriate for little kids to be seen and how your swimsuit covers these areas. And if anyone ever shows that, to get an adult and things like that. You have to start young. And then as they mature, you really just have to be intentional. You have to do a lot of listening, ask a lot of really good questions. I hate to break it to parents, but you have to be intentional about technology. You cannot just hand over devices to your children and hope for the best. You have got to be engaged in teaching, coaching, and training your kids how to use technology. You don't hand them the keys to the car when they're 5 and say, good luck. We train them when they're 15, 14, 15, 16, and teach them how to do these things. The same has to apply for technology. And the most important thing parents need to do is model good technology behaviors. There's simple things that parents can do right away, which is stop being on your device 24/7. Your kids watch you. They mimic you. They have mirror neurons that are picking up on what you do, and they do the same back. So show and model the right behaviors. We can harness technology for good, but we have to be intentional about it. The other thing is get those technology items out of the bedrooms. No child needs it in their bedrooms. It interferes with sleep. So from a health perspective, that's one reason. But from the second reason, a lot of pornography is stumbled upon in the evenings at night when nobody's looking and they're just playing on their phones and devices. Easy next step. The other thing is that Covenant Eyes provides 3 parenting guidebooks free on our website. All you have to do is go to covenanteyes.com and download these ebooks. They give you a roadmap of how to start conversations. I mean, there's no excuse. They're free. Like, we give this away free because we have a heart to serve parents and families all over this country. We want people to know what to do because we've got to step in and be there to help guide and coach our children.
There's a great word out there called neuroplasticity, and that means that our brains have the ability to heal. So we have the ability to walk away. Karen's talked a lot about the family, but I really want to talk about the parents, even single people who are struggling with pornography, especially for parents. If we as parents are struggling with pornography, we're the models for our children. We're the examples. They're going to look to us to see how to live life. And if we're struggling, even if it's secret, it's going to affect the family. So that's the biggest thing I would say is if parents, you're struggling, you got to find freedom. Now, if you're not a parent, if you're not married, if you're single, if you're a ministry leader, same thing. We have to be able to break free of these things. And I think one of the important things is we don't journey together, right? Is in the Christian life, we have friends. We surround ourselves with people who are going to help us to journey towards holiness. And it's the same thing with pornography. It's so addictive and such a struggle and so dark that we have to bring light to it, and we can't do it alone. And so that's where I really love accountability and Covenant Eyes. And actually what was a huge part of my own journey was Covenant Eyes and getting accountability into my life. So I realized I didn't have to journey alone, because that's one of the greatest lies porn says is you're all alone, and it brings in the shame and all the guilt and everything that comes along with it. And so when we bring in this accountability with a trusted friend, we're now saying, I'm here to walk with you. We're going to go through hills. We're going to go through valleys, but I'm not going to leave you. So those are just a couple of things that I would add to, if you're not a parent, is in general, as Christians, we have to walk away, and biblical accountability is really a great step forward.
I think that's great. I mean, so explain to us what covenant eyes is. So a lot of people like me maybe watching aren't super amazing at technology, and they're sort of like, covenant eyes, what is that? When I first read about covenant eyes, I assumed it was something that was almost like, one of those things you put on your computer to limit the sites you can see. And this other covenant eyes isn't exactly that. It's actually something kind of quite different, built on accountability. And why don't you explain to people how it works so they understand?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kick this off with Covenant Eyes is a software that gets installed on your devices. So for those that are not super techy, it's basically something that gets installed on a device. And then we provide screen accountability and monitoring on that device. So we're monitoring activity across that device and reporting that to your trusted ally or friend. And I'll let Brandon dive into a little more of like, what does that mean? The friends, like, what is the reporting? The important piece to that is that we also offer filtering. So there is an option for filtering where you can actually just block known bad sites right out of the gate and bad content. So that's a great feature, especially if you're, a parent who has, middle school and high school kids. Sometimes it's just best to block some things that, absolutely don't have a place in the child's life. So the blocking mechanism works great. Now, for me and my husband, we actually still use the blocking because we've been married for so long and we're old school. So we're just like, we don't even want anything coming through on our devices ever. So we use blocking. It's not for every adult, but it certainly can be used in that way as well. But as far as the accountability piece goes, I'll let Brandon dive into a little bit more of what that looks like and what the reporting features are.
Hey, Brandon, before you do that, could you guys, or Karen, could you explain to me a little bit more about the blocking? So when you say
Yeah.
you're going to block certain things, like, in other words, would you say, I want to block a specific site, or is it some sort of algorithm that kind of understands what those kind of sites are? And the reason I say that is because, being someone that's not very tech savvy, I know these people are coming after me. These demonic people,
Yes.
they come after on all sorts stuff just pops up. What maybe if you're, I hate social media, but you got to use it for your business. You go on social media and like, oh, I'm going to tag. I took a photo with, somebody, whoever it is I met. And I'm like, oh, I got to search for the name. You hit search, and these people are coming after you with nasty stuff. They want to get you because they're demonic. So does it filter out some of that stuff, or do you have to put in each specific thing?
So the filtering that we have actually is AI technology. So it actually has predetermined filtering that's in place. So we don't have a feature where you can actually manually plug in, like block a certain name or a certain person's per se, but the AI is aware and has been trained for, gosh, I don't know, going on 5 years now to look and block those particular sites and those particular known offenders. So depending on like where you're at on the internet, it should be blocking those sites if you have it turned on.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, that's great. Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Brandon. Go ahead.
All good, John. I would just add one thing to that too, is that it does put safe search on things like Google and Bing and YouTube and stuff like that, which is also really helpful because I mean, I'm sure you've been on YouTube and see the things that pop up on the side as far as suggested videos. Like, what? I'm just watching Cooper stuff, man. What the heck?
That's right. Come on now. That's what good people do. You tell them.
So more on the accountability. So when you choose your trusted friend, we call them allies. What they would do is they would install an app on their phone called the Victory app. And what that does is it provides a one-stop shop where people can go, your ally can go to see how you're doing. If you're the one who's being held accountable. What's really great is they use a very basic system of like green, yellow, red, or green, orange, red. So green is you're good to go. Orange is this is concerning. There might be something here. Maybe you should check in with your ally and see what's going on. And red is like, we got to check in. We've got something going on here. The other nice is you get an almost real-time notification if the person you're holding accountable has looked at pornography, so that you can check in with them right away. And the other thing is, you can see an activity feed. So it'll show a bunch of different screenshots that have been taken throughout the day, because they might not be looking at pornography, but they might be doing things and building a pattern that could lead them in that direction, right? So it's about building that conversation, building that relationship so that you guys are open and honest and vulnerable and can journey together and really help that person be able to find that freedom. So that's what I love about the app, is it's all right there in the app, and the ability to reach out and connect. And I know we got some great things, great updates coming next year that are going to continue to help with that relationship, that accountability relationship.
Okay, yeah. So I think it's important for people to understand when you come to do this, you're doing it with a partner. In other words, Covenant Eyes is not providing you a partner that hits you. It's like, this is you and your best friend or whoever it is. You know, one of my best friends is a pastor, and he says that him and all of his elders do it together, Covenant and Eyes together. So you can do it with multiple people too, right? What is that group? Is it up to 9 people or something?
Yeah. So there are churches and organizations that do group plans. We've got bulk pricing programs and different ways that churches engage. So yes, you can do it as a group. A lot of men's groups do it together. It's a great program to do together.
And I would just add this, John, for the people out there who are not tech savvy, we have a fantastic member care team. So if they can hop on an online chat or call us, email us, and they can get all the help they need. They're really good. They'll stay on with you as long as you need to make sure that you're set up and that everything is working properly. So don't let the technology or the word software piece scare you. It's really easy to use and install. We have guides, we have online resources, and like I said, that great membership or member care team.
And I want to add to just real quickly that we are a US-based organization. So all of our member care agents are in the United States. They're real people. I know most of them myself personally. Like, they are real live people in the United States. And Covenant Eyes was born in the United States 23 years ago. So we're not a new company. We've been around forever. Most churches and pastors know who we are, trust us with their flock, when people come to them that need help in this area. So, you know, we by far are the number one company when it comes to helping people overcome pornography.
Yes, wonderful. I just think we've really got to get the word out on this. So if people are watching, if even if you're like, yeah, this isn't a thing for me, I'm sure you know people that do, especially if you're in a church. I hope everybody watching is in a church, by the way. There's probably going to be tons of younger folks, teenagers and college and younger parents. I say that because recently I've met several grandparents that watched Cooper stuff. I was shocked. And one of them said to me, one of them was like, yeah, I didn't even know you played music. And then I heard your music recently and I really didn't like it, but I like your podcast. So, all right, I love it. So we got some grandparents. So if you're like, yeah, this isn't my thing, you probably have people in church. And I just think this issue is not going away. I keep finding people that are really passionate about ending sex trafficking, but not passionate about pornography. I don't think they're understanding how all this goes together. And this is going to get worse. This AI stuff. I don't know if you guys saw did you see the thing that came out recently with Dennis Prager, who is a conservative, he's a conservative commentator, tons of great stuff. He's a Jewish guy, tons of brilliant stuff from Dennis Prager. But this whole conversation that came out when they were asking, what if somebody was watching AI child porn or like anime child porn, would that be fine? He was like, yeah, that would be fine. And all the conservatives are, not all, but a lot of us are freaking out because if we don't get clarity on this issue, it's going to get so much worse. I mean, as we're closing up, you guys can say anything you want to, but what is AI going to do to this whole thing? I mean, it seems insane to me.
Yeah, we actually had the National Center for Sexual Exploitation experts on our podcast at Covenant Eyes to talk about this very issue. So they're by far the experts. They're on the cutting edge and they are aware of how AI is being used in both trafficking and pornography spaces. I think this creates a real danger. I think AI in general, there's too many unknowns right now. But for the pornography piece, I think we need to be aware that it is going to be easier and easier, especially with deep fakes and all these other things, for pornography to become very, very dangerous. Imagine your face on some image that's not you. I mean, careers can be destroyed. People will make judgments without knowing whether these things are true or not. I think we're in a very dangerous spot as a culture, because AI right now is running rampant and there are no guardrails in place, and pornography is going to exploit that to the maximum power.
It really is. And I would just add this, just on a personal level, our culture is already at a place where people have a tough time holding a conversation without having their phones out, right? Go to a restaurant today and see how many people are talking face to face with no technology. I think that AI and things like that are just going to continue to push us further and further from human connection. And so I guess what I would want to ask your listeners here, John, is what kind of society, what kind of future do we want to have in our country? Because as we get further and further from real human connection, as we get deeper into things like pornography, and we have unsatisfied marriages, and we have violence growing, that's going to be a whole different world than we have now. And it's one that is going to have some severe consequences.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that this is a really frightening time ahead of us, and the AI whole new frontier. And I just think we got to deal with this in the church. And I think if we deal with it in the church, I think that the light is going to shine so bright from the people who are set free and living in freedom. You know, Jesus, that's it's for freedom. It's for freedom that we have been set free. The church will shine so bright because of freedom from this addiction. And then I think the world is just going to get darker into this slavery and slave to the device, slave to the machine, slave to this pornography, slave to the beast, man. So church, we've got to wake up. We've got to do something about it. Go to Covenant Eyes, by the way. You can use the promo code Cooper. You can get your first month free. Try a subscription, see if you dig it, because you pay for Covenant Eyes on a monthly basis. So I think you guys should check that out. I want to thank these guys, Brandon and Karen, for joining us and saying it. Thank you guys for joining the show. If there's anything, last words you want to say, go for it.
John, thank you for being bold and talking about a tough topic. There's not a lot of people out there that will. So thank you for being willing. We appreciate it. And hopefully your listeners were able to learn something new, and hopefully will jump in the battle with us.
Yeah,
Amen.
I would just second that. One of the reasons that we want to work with you, John, and have been working, is because we know that you're bold and you're not afraid to speak truth. And pornography, as you mentioned early in this episode, is not an easy topic to talk about. And so we're so grateful for you being willing to speak out. I do just want to give a shout out. I know you've got the Cooper Stuff podcast, but Karen and I also co-host the Covenant Eyes podcast, where we talk about all of these different topics like AI, parenting, pornography, wholesome content, alternatives, different things like that. So that could be a great resource for your listeners to check out if they want to stay up to date on the latest in how to stay, family friendly, technology friendly, and be able to combat the beast that is pornography in their lives.
That's fantastic. People, go check it out. Thank you guys for joining the show. I hope everybody has a killer week.
Read the Bible.
Cooper Stuff.